How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Noah. I am a Dart analyst at Lithia. Lithia is one of the largest auto groups in the world, and I currently work for Prestige Toyota Ramsey, one of their subsequent dealers. Basically what it is a leadership rotational program where I go through every single department to learn the business from the ground up. And so I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys a little bit more about stuff that I've been learning this week in service, which is what I've been, that's part of the phase that I'm in right now. And more specifically, dispatching and how work is disseminated in the service center. So a few prefaces. One thing I want to preface beforehand is that I'm not trying to disparage anybody, especially here. The service writers, the techs, the dispatchers, everybody does their job to the best of their ability. In every organization, there's going to be some flaws and some things that can be improved. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's innate human inability that's the problem. It could just mean, organization and process flow is an issue. So this has nothing to do with specific people. That said, I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about the workflow and how that's disseminated, because there seem to be some issues, at least from what I'm seeing, in terms of how we do that. And one of those things that I think has helped me see that is that it seems to me that a lot of people run the service center based on a very intuitive feel, just intuition. And that comes from years of experience that they have working with technicians or as a tech or in the service, whatever it may be. I don't have that. I'm 22. So the way that I have to approach it is I have to start creating procedures and processes in my head, structured behaviors to accomplish work tasks, because I don't have the experience to just kind of wing it, so to speak. You know what I mean? So in that sense, I don't see those structured processes. There's nobody telling me like, hey, we do this, this, and this, and that leads to this. That's not really the thing. The only thing that we do that's kind of a structured process is FIFO. If you've taken some, accounting or college finance courses, you've probably heard that term, and it just means first in, first out. So when a waiter comes in, a waiter is somebody who drops their car at the dealership and waits for it to be done. So when waiters come in and say, we open at 7, if they come in at 7, they are the first ones that we're working on. We're trying to get them out immediately. And the goal is to try and balance between waiters and promised customers. What I mean by that is if a customer comes in at 8 and we tell them your car will be ready at 3, so we give ourselves a nice kind of 7-hour buffer, we want to balance that time with the waiters and the promise to make sure everybody gets their car when they expect to get it. The other issue is that I see some confusion sometimes about what holds a service center back. Some people with technician backgrounds they have a very go-get mentality, and they would, work until their fingers fall off with the amount of volume that we have here, and they could make a ton of money because of it. And that's not everybody, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, the way of the world. Now, to that, what I mean by that is that, we have 48 bays in our service center. So hypothetically, we could be working on 48 cars at a time. Can we though? Because that's not the constraint. Bays are not the constraint. It's the people. It's the human capital that is the actual constraint there. So we only have 24 technicians. A technician can't reliably work on 2 cars at once unless one of those cars is like a reflash or a software update. So, if it's just a software update, he can leave that car running and the ECM running, doing the software, and then work on brakes on another car, for example. But that's not every car. That's only a few instances. So there's not a lot of instances where a tech can realistically work on 2 at once, which makes the bays, it's just kind of superfluous to the idea about workflow, where human capital is really the bottleneck. So with that said, I dispatched on Saturday, and if you guys don't know what dispatching is, I've talked about it before a little bit because this is my 4th time doing it. Basically what you're doing is you're managing the workflow for the entire service center. And I'm not trying to chalk that up as as a personal accomplishment for me, But it's truly what it is, because the technicians, whether whether you believe it or not, really are what keep a dealership afloat. You take away the techs, game over. You take away salespeople, people will still come in and try and buy a car, and they'll do it with the receptionist, God forbid. Obviously, that's a very extreme scenario. If everybody else kept their salesman and we lost our salesman, we're not selling cars. But I think you understand what I mean, and the concept that the technicians are involved in pretty much every aspect of dealership activities, because when we get new cars from the factory, who inspects them? Technicians. When we get used cars, when we purchase used cars or trade-ins, who repairs them to get them frontline ready? Technicians. They are involved every step of the way with the very product that we sell. So if they are working less, or if there's some inefficiency in the technician department, the entire dealership will start to struggle. And I emphasize that with this example that, we have 2 bays for each of our technicians. One very common occurrence is to give a technician a used car to work on when they have time, and put that in one bay, and then use the other bay for waiters and promised. And now that is not an exact rule, but that's what we have the 2 bays for. It's for that spare car. So if they're only working on one waiter or a promise time, we can use the other bay for a used car. However, we're a pretty high volume store. It's Toyota. We have a ton of customers who come in each day. And, every day we probably average at least 50 appointments. We go up sometimes to 90 appointments. And if we're fully staffed with 24 techs, that's still it can be 2 to 4 cars a person, depending on the vehicle. Those can be really long processes. It's not necessarily easy stuff. And even if it is an easy job, let's just say it's something simple, we'll just say an alternator. But we live in Jersey, where there's a ton of snow and inclement weather that could rust the bolts, create issues that way. I had one tech, I gave him, when I was dispatching, I asked him to work on some flushes that were upsold by one of the service advisors, meaning I wanted him to do a brake fluid exchange, a coolant flush, and a differential or transmission fluid replacement. And it took him an hour and a half for the coolant, and not a problem for him. It was not his fault. It was just the car condition. I'm not a technician, so I don't understand the process fully, but he said that there was constantly air getting into the system, something to that regard. He could not finish the job because of the car's quality. So there are issues like that arise that just take simple jobs hours to complete, which is really, really unfortunate. So what I want to make sure, what I wanted to really come on and say is, I think there are better ways to kind of organize the workflow. One way to do that is to have technicians that are completely or just isolated for used cars. And I brought that up to my boss, and it's actually an idea that's already in play. I didn't know that was the case. So yeah, credit to me. But so that's going to happen. So that's good, because we need that. There has to be technicians that can work solely on the used cars, because then we never have anything frontline ready, and it makes the techs work, they're way more stressed out, and it's just harder. The other thing is that there's not a ton of communication between the service advisors and the dispatcher, and there has to be more, and there also has to just be a better structure and procedure for giving work out. There has to be, I feel, rules of thumb, or not safety nets, but responses to fall back on when something arises. So if you think about a mind map, stuff like a decision-making tree, if this event happens, or if this is occurring, then do this. If it's not occurring, then do this. That's kind of where my brain goes in terms of this, in terms of dispatching and, giving out workflow like that. I don't know exactly how we might do it, but one thing I will say is that very often we will have service writers tell customers that they can wait. And what that does is, if we get 20 cars in the day, just to keep it simple, we'll get 20 cars. If we schedule 15 of those as waiters, and they're staying at the dealership, we cannot get, as you know, we're going to have diminishing returns. As we get further along down the schedule, it's going to take longer and longer and longer. And the person who's last is going to be waiting for his car forever. And if it compounds more, which it does, there are a ton, you know, it's obviously way more than 20. If we have so many waiters, then somebody is going to be mad, because if somebody comes in at 7, then we get to start working on their car immediately. Perfect. But if then somebody else comes in at 8:30, all of our techs are now working on waiters from that first round. So let's say that 8:30 person, their car doesn't even get seen by a tech until noon, or we'll say 11:30 or something like that. So that's already 2 hours 3 hours in the dealership, and their car hasn't even been seen. And then let's say maybe it's another 3 hours for repair. That's a long day. That's tough. Like, I very much feel for the customer. It's a reason why I don't take my car to dealerships, besides the price for service. But not to say that you shouldn't take your car to dealership service. Obviously, I work with one, so I don't want to disparage it. You pay a premium for quality repair. It's the whole point. Warranty and everything like that. I'm a 22-year-old. I can't afford it, so I go somewhere else. But that said, so that basically just impacts customer satisfaction. We will get those cars done, but the customers aren't going to be happy about it. Now, if we have half of the customers that come in and we tell them you can't pick your car up until this time, or we would suggest you drop it off, that manages customer expectations a lot better. And while the workflow is still, there's still a ton of work to do down at the service center, at least we're not making anybody mad in the process. We can effectively get the people who are waiting out as quickly as possible, and then work on the promised cars or the drop-offs as we see fit, and we're not making anybody stay longer and ruining their day. Now, in terms of how properly that is disseminated, I am not sure. I don't have a plan for that at the moment. It's definitely something I would like to think about, because I just don't feel like the current process is the most efficient it could be. So I think that's pretty much all I kind of wanted to come on and talk to you about. I just wanted to give more of a sense of how that process works, and some of the struggles that we see at the dealership and in the auto industry, and more so just to kind of explain some of my learning experiences through this whole journey. So if you have any questions or concerns, please throw them down in the comments, like and subscribe. It would be very, very helpful to me. And I will see you all next time.